Hi folks, this is Steve from the Pistol Place. Welcome to this video review of the KWC Model P08, usually known as the Luger. The Luger is a very well-known pistol, and there have been several replicas of this from various manufacturers including Tanaka, WE, Boomerex and Gleicher. For various reasons I haven't been entirely happy with any of the previous replicas, and when I heard about this KWC one, I was hoping that it would turn out to be the definitive Luger replica. Is it? Well, I'll explain that. First thing I should say is that I got this one from a German supplier. Now I was a little bit confused because on the German site it's listed as a GSG product. GSG stands for German Sport Guns. GSG are a company who market various replicas and 2.2 firing pistols. When I saw it, I wasn't sure that it was the KWC, but it is. You can see that the box it comes in is the KWC box. So you may see it listed as a GSG P08, but don't be fooled, it's the KWC pistol. Well, we've got the box out. What do you get inside it? Well, you get an Allen key for tightening and piercing the CO2, and you get various pieces of paper and a small box of BBs, as you can see. Now, the small bits of paper I shall talk about briefly. There is a piece of propaganda from KWC on the rest of their range, some of which look very nice. I particularly look at the Makarov blowback, but that's for another review, I guess. There is an owner's manual. Now, some owner's manuals from Taiwan are not very good. This one's spectacularly bad. It's one of the worst I've seen. It really tells you nothing that you need to know. There's a number of amusing misspellings in it. You'll see on the back here we have an explored view of the pistol, which I guess should be an exploded view. It's even more useless than most Taiwanese owner's manuals, so you're not going to spend much time looking at that. Also inside the box was a sheet of paper from GSG with what looks like some additional information on the pistol, which is in German, which I can just about read, and that also seems to have some fairly obvious mistakes in it, which I'll talk about in a moment. Okay, let's have a look at the pistol itself. Visually, it's a very good replica of the Luger. It has very good weight. When you pick it up, it feels notably heavier than most replicas. It reminds me a lot of the Tanfoglio Witness, the first time I picked one of those up. It feels like a well-made and heavy replica, and given that that's made by KWC as well, probably no surprise there. So it looks pretty good. It feels pretty good. Markings, well, there aren't many. You can see that on the right side here we have the KWC model number. So it really is a KWC pistol. And on the left side, for some reason, we've got GSG, Cal 6mm. Obviously this is added to the pistol later by GSG, who I guess are acting as distributors for this pistol in Germany. The P08, or the Luger, let's call it that, is a fairly unique looking pistol because it uses a completely different system than most semi-automatic pistols. It doesn't have a moving slide. What it has is a receiver on top of the frame here, and within the receiver a toggle mechanism. The toggle mechanism, you'll see here, on the cartridge version, this moving back extracts the old shell and puts the next shell into the breech ready for firing. Works in exactly the same way here. This is a very good replication of the toggle, works in exactly the same way. You'll see that it's locked back. There isn't any equivalent to a slide release on the Luger. The only way to release the toggle is either to have a round in the magazine, in which case it'll release, or if, as you have an empty magazine, the only way to release the toggle is to take the magazine out and pull it again, and the toggle will close. I've got to say that the toggle, which is really a central part of the way the Luger works, is really nicely done here. I've owned both Tanaka and WE versions, and on those the toggle mechanism is quite flimsy. It isn't here, it feels really nice. You'll see that as the toggle moves back, it gets to a certain point and then it moves the whole receiver backwards in the frame. Again, that's exactly what it should do and how it should work. this is a very nice replication of how the Luger works. In fact, the whole pistol is. I'll discuss some of that later. I'm going to show how to take down the Luger. It's not something I usually bother with on my reviews, but I know that some people are a bit worried about how you actually take this thing apart. It's perfectly easy, it's just different to any other sort of semi-automatic pistol. I want to do that, one to show it's done, two because there's a couple of things inside the pistol I want to discuss. So okay, how do you take it down? Well, first thing is take the magazine out, which I've done. Then push the receiver back so it's sitting at the back of its travel, like that, and hold it against the return spring. Move the takedown lever down through 90 degrees and then remove this small cover plate. Okay, that's it. Now the receiver and the barrel will slide forward off the frame. Nice and easy. The toggle mechanism, barrel and everything else come off together. One thing to be a little bit careful about is there is a washer in here at the rear, and if the pistol is very dry, and this one certainly was when I received it, that washer can fall out when you take the receiver out of the frame, so make sure you don't lose it. I'm also going to take the toggle mechanism out of the receiver. Again, it's fairly easy, but you do have to be a little bit careful. It's slightly more fiddly than it is with dismantling a semi-auto with a slide. What you have to do is push out this pin at the rear here. You don't have to drift it out, it's just a push fit, but what you do have to be careful about is that the return spring is under tension. So when you push out the pin, the toggle, the barrel, everything else will tend to spring out unless you hold it in place with your finger while you're removing the pin. Okay, let's push the pin out. Okay, so the pin's out, and if I carefully now release the tension, you can see that the barrel, the toggle mechanism can all be withdrawn. There's the barrel, this is the toggle. So taking it apart is not actually difficult. It's a little bit more fiddly than it is for some pistols, but not difficult. One of the things you'll notice is that the barrel has a two-piece spring. There are two springs, a small and a larger one with a metal washer in between, so if you do take them apart, do be careful to put them together the same way, in the same order that you took them off. This is the toggle mechanism. There isn't actually much to it when you get it out. One of the reasons I wanted to take it out was to talk about, well, first of all, hop-up. This is a 6mm version. KWC also make a 4.5mm version. I prefer 6 for various reasons, which I'll explain later. And there seems to be some doubt about whether this thing has hop-up or not. Hop-up allows you to adjust the trajectory of the 6mm BB. Now, in the sheet from GSG that comes with the gun, there is a section on Das Hop-Up system. Now, my German isn't great, but even I can work out that's talking about hop-up. And what it actually says is turning the screw anti-clockwise will increase the hop-up effect. That's what it says. But as far as I can see, there isn't any hop-up in this thing. The only screw that I can see in it, I hope you can see this here, is at the rear of the toggle mechanism there. There's a small brass screw. Now that screw is in the transfer port that takes CO2 from the magazine to the barrel. You can take that screw out, you can loosen it, but it certainly isn't adjusting hop-up, and if you do loosen it, I think it'll tend to come loose, so I wouldn't be inclined to turn that at all. There is nothing else in here that would allow you to adjust hop-up, so despite what GSG says, I don't think this thing has any sort of hop-up adjustment at all. Also, if you look down the barrel, which I can't really show you on the camera, there is an O-ring inside the barrel, but there's no means of tensioning it, which is generally how you adjust hop-up. The other thing I wanted to show you is again at the rear of the toggle mechanism, and I'm not sure how well this is going to show up on camera. There is some wear at the edges of this unit. Now I've probably shot not much more than 150, maybe 200 rounds through the KWC Luger, and already this is showing some signs of wear. It's as it retracts and hits the back part of the toggle, it's starting to wear. That's a little bit worrying, it's a bit surprising, and it's certainly something I'll be keeping an eye on. The Tanfoglio Witness was a wonderful replica in many ways. but some people had problems with it. I hope this isn't going to be the same, and it's a little worrying to see that level of wear this early. Okay, reassembling it all is very simple. The barrel goes, inner barrel, goes in the outer barrel. Then you thread on toggle, which again you have to be careful to get it lined up, but it isn't really that difficult. Okay, and once you have it back in place, you replace the pin at the rear. Which is the most fiddly part of the whole thing, as you can see. And of course I can normally do this without any problems at all, but now that I'm trying to do it on video I can't get it to locate. Right, finally. Pin pushes all the way through, washers on the other side. That goes down, the receiver fits back onto the frame, like this. Push it so it's at the rear of its travel, replace the cover plate and shut the takedown lever. You insert the magazine and we're good to go. Not difficult really, but more fiddly than it is with most semi-autos. And it's kind of about how the Luger works. It's a really complex design, which is beautifully replicated here. Even the trailer mechanism is the most Heath Robinson thing you can imagine. The trigger is down here. In fact, I'll take the cover plate off for a moment so I can show you. The trigger, when it moves, simply operates a small slot in here. And what goes into that slot is a very small moving pin on the cover plate. You can just see it moving there. That then presses on some bars here. They work almost in a seesaw arrangement, so when one goes up the other one goes down, and that eventually feeds the motion through to the internal trigger. As I say, it's quite a strange arrangement. It does kind of work, but it does give you quite a spongy trigger, and that's just how Lugers are, and it replicates it very nicely. But it's more complicated than it needs to be, probably. But there you are, it's a Luger, that's what happens. The magazine is a pretty much standard KWC magazine. CO2, I have an empty CO2 here, fits into the magazine, and then you tighten the plug in the bottom with the supplied Allen key until it pierces. As I say, it works just the same as most KWC magazines. It's slightly more difficult because the magazine itself is so tiny, it's quite difficult to get a good hold of it and stop it turning as you're tightening the Allen key, so sometimes there is some loss of gas. BBs up to 15 on the 6mm version. The follower doesn't lock back, but you can hold it back. The strings are particularly powerful, so it's not difficult. BBs go into this loading hole here, and when it's loaded, you're ready to put it back into the pistol. When you're fitting it, certainly when I first got mine, on a couple of occasions it felt like it had locked, but then the magazine dropped out, so you don't want to push it in too hard, but do make sure that it's nicely located into the grip, otherwise it may drop out when you're using it. So overall, good. Plastic grips, black plastic, okay, that isn't what Lugers have, they almost always have wooden grips. I can't say I mind too much about that. Everything on it is as it should be. There is this piece on the rear of the grip, which on the real one was used to clip on a shoulder stock to some versions of the Luger. I have no idea whether KWC will be producing a shoulder stock for this one, but they've certainly modelled this accurately, so it looked like it could feasibly take a shoulder stock. Safety, well, pretty basic. Safe and fire. Works as you'd expect it to. Magazine release behind the trigger, just where you'd think it was. So in some ways it's very different, in other ways it isn't. Okay, let's take a look at how it shoots. Okay, as you can see, the KWC Luger shoots extremely well. It's actually difficult to see in the video because some of the BBs are going through the same hole. The grouping was fairly tight. I think there was one fly that landed maybe an inch and a half away from the rest, but otherwise certainly better than most BB pistols. This one shoots about 2 inches high at 6 yards, which isn't terrible. But that's with 0.2 gram BBs. I can use heavier BBs, which I imagine will bring that down to about the point of aim. That's one of the reasons I prefer using 6mm replicas. If you have a 4.5mm that shoots either high or low, and most of them do, there's really nothing you can do about it because all steel BBs weigh about the same. Plastic BBs, you can get a range of weights and you can use different weight BBs to adjust where the shot actually hits the target. I also like the 6mm BBs because they cause less damage, especially to ricochets. I did manage to shoot a hole through a large and very expensive double glazing unit in my conservatory with my 4.5mm Tanfoglio Witness. Now, I'm sure you wouldn't be stupid enough to do that, but I clearly am stupid enough, and I like using the 6mm BBs because there isn't the risk of that sort of damage or injury. Sights on the Luger are absolute rubbish, but they're authentically rubbish. I mean, this is just how Luger sights are. There is a V-shaped notch at the rear, which kind of sort of lines up with the post at the front. It's a bit like the sights on the Colt Single Action Army. They're difficult to get used to. You can use them, they're not great. That's just how it is with Lugers, I'm afraid. I wonder if KWC will do an 8-inch version with adjustable sights. That'd be kind of nice. One shock was the CO2 consumption. This thing seems to go through CO2 much more quickly than I expected. I was getting under 50 shots per CO2, which really surprised me. There isn't a heavy slide here, there's just a toggle mechanism which is fairly light. You would imagine it wouldn't use that much CO2, but it does. It's certainly on a par with the Tanfoglio Witness, or even slightly worse than that, which is a surprise. The blowback is very snappy, the toggle mechanism moves very quickly indeed. There isn't much felt recoil because it's so much smaller than a slide. So you do get some recoil effect from it, but not very much. It's moderately loud, not too loud. Overall, it's very nice to shoot, I have to say, and the accuracy, or at least the consistency, is very good for a BB pistol. I suspect partly because of the design of the Luger, because the barrel isn't moving as a floating barrel does on a typical semi-auto with a slide. It seems to be just about all metal, something I should have mentioned and forgot to in the first part of the review. The only things I can find on this that aren't metal are the grips and the internal transfer port for the CO2. Everything else is. All the pins, all the parts of the toggle mechanism are metal. Now, okay, it's zinc alloy rather than steel. It probably will wear, but it seems to be fairly well put together, fairly well designed, and it just feels like a quality bit of kit, which is quite surprising given the cost. I paid less than €100 for this one, so it's very much a low-cost pistol, a bit like the Tanfoglio Witness it was when it first came out, and for that, really, you're getting a very good replica of the Luger pistol. Pros and cons. Cons, well, I would have liked better markings. The markings on this thing are really not very good. I'll talk about that more in the written review here, but you can see you have the number 15 in a few places, which is completely meaningless and nothing like a real Luger. Real Lugers are absolutely covered in markings, and this one, for some reason, they just don't do that at all. I'm a bit concerned at some of the wear to the internal components, especially in the toggle mechanism after really not that many shots. I'm concerned about the long-term durability of this. Who knows, it's something I'll find out as time goes on. The finish is okay. It's a sort of semi-matte black, as you can see, and I don't suppose it's going to be any more durable than the finish on any other replica pistol. It's okay. It would have been nice at least to have brown grips rather than black grips. That might have looked a bit more like wood, but it's not the end of the world. And what about the pros? Well, it's a decent visual and functional replica of the Luger, and it's a nice shooter too. There have been other replicas of the Luger, but I haven't come across any that combine both visual and functional accuracy and the ability to shoot fairly well, so in that it's rather good. It seems to be reasonably well made and well put together, with reservations about long-term wear. It's cheap. It really is a low-cost pistol, and what you get for that is something that's probably better than you would expect. It sells for not much more than the price of some old plastic replicas, and this is metal. Is it the definitive Luger replica? Well, honestly, I'm not sure there is such a thing. But it's probably the best one that I've seen to date, and certainly until something better comes along, this is about as good as it gets in terms of a replica of the Luger. It's a very different pistol. It's different to shoot, it's different to take down and to operate. If you've got any interest in Lugers or historic firearms, you're probably going to want to get one of these, and the bonus is that you'll probably enjoy shooting it too. Okay, thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the review, and there will be a full written review of the KWC Luger on the Pistol Place.